Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today. The weather is amazing for the middle of January. It's in the 60s, unheard of where I live. So I'm trying to stay outside the entire day. The wind is a little bit off and on, so if this video is too horrible when I replay it and review it, I'll just remake it. But if you hear it come up every once in a while, just know it's a little bit windy, and I apologize. So let's get into this. I like philosophy talk. I don't know why. I didn't major in philosophy in college, but I really kind of thought maybe that could have been something I could have done. It's just so interesting to look at different aspects and viewpoints of how people go about problem solving and how they deal with life. And so I just want to highlight something that I keep thinking in my head. And this is just something that I always remind myself because I found this to be true over time. And that is, be mindful of what you think about, because you have the great ability for the majority of your life to select how you want to be, and how, you're going to actually get in the end result, the outcome of what is going to actually be delivered. So we first have to start with how we think. We can control that to a great majority of the time. There are times that we have grief and loss, things that happen in our life, but that isn't the majority of the time. That's just a little bit here and there. And so we can choose what to focus on. This is the beauty of us. We get to pick. And the next thing is that just like we can choose what to think, we can choose what to believe in. And of course, everybody has their own beliefs. That's the uniqueness about humans as well. And especially in America, you could even be more outward about the belief system. You can't force it on anybody, thankfully, but you can definitely share it in some fashion. It's becoming more difficult because there's so many groups that are so sensitive, but you still have it nonetheless. You can share your beliefs or your thoughts. So that's awesome. So you can pick that. Now you can say, well, but my belief is right. Well, I mean, you hear that everywhere, especially in more primitive cultures that, we have to all together believe in this ideology or else. And when in reality, maybe it's not true. Who knows what really is true? You just do the best you can through life. And of course, then there's other people who would say, well, that's when you have faith. But there's a lot of different faiths. So how are you going to tell me? Of course, you have your own version and your own different types of motivation to believe what you believe. If you really want to get down to brass tack, you chose what to believe. And it could have been something because foundationally it was what you had as a child and nothing different. Could be that you've done an exploration over your whole life and you searched and searched and you settled on one type of belief system. Maybe you created your own because there was nothing that worked for you. Any of that works, because if you're being honest with yourself, how can you be wrong? Honestly. Now you may say, well, it doesn't really matter what you believe. If you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong. And see, this is the circle logic that we get in, that some people are very rigid. And so let's move on. What we think, what we believe leads into typically how we feel. Of course, there's always external types of situations that can come about, and that do. Once again, grief and loss, and it's really hard to get around, like controlling how you feel when a loved one passes away or is severely injured or limited in some fashion that they were before. That leads to hardship for everyone. And so in that sense, it's okay to actually feel sad. We have ebb and flows. But the great majority of the time, very large majority, you can actually choose to feel good. But not everybody does that, though. That's the interesting part, because it goes into the next part that people don't want to do it. It's the doing. So you have to choose what to do. And, it's the action of it. And the mindset, so that you can feel the way you want to feel. And this leads into being what we want to be. Once again, this is a choice. It's so amazing that this is all a choice. But there are so many people who just choose not to be happy. and not to want to be in a lifestyle that they wish they were, or doing things that they want to do. They just choose not to do it. And it could be through fear, and it could be through just low self-esteem, and we could probably rattle off 100 excuses. But ultimately, you just chose not to do it. And lastly, what we have chosen to be lends to how we live. And it's just like it comes in full circle here. It's a culmination of all of those actions and thoughts and feelings that build up to who we are in our life. Not an essence of who we really are in terms of the bigger picture, because we aren't the things that we do. That's just something that we do. But we are, in our essence, much larger than the things that go on here on this planet, in my opinion. And because of that, we have to be mindful that the way we go about things build. And so our contributions to maybe humanity, or maybe even to our family, which is nothing to scoff about, on whatever level that you contribute on, these things matter in a macro sense, in a big way, actually. One thing influences another. It would be so interesting if it was even possible to track an action. For example, if you did a good deed and someone witnessed that and it was emotionally touched by that, but they never even told you that they even saw it, you did the good deed. But they were so touched by that, they actually helped another person. And that person helped another 2 people. And then those people helped 5 people and 10 people. And there's a massive wildfire infection of helping. And you can imagine how that translates in the real world, because you may have infinite results off of that action, because you started with that core belief and that core thought and that feeling to do what you did. And you have infinite magnification effect, infinite reward. And that's why a lot of people believe that serving others and giving to others and charity is the ultimate, because it is an extension of you, and you in some way live forever. You become immortal because of your actions, lives through others, potentially for generations and generations, and may never ever go out because of the hospitality and maybe the empathy shown. And that is, once again, what makes us human. You don't see animals do that. So what are your thoughts on the repercussions of those aspects of us? Our thinking, our beliefs, our doing, and how we feel about things, how we become, and what we become. And of course, well, in terms of our lifestyle, how we live in our totality. Because I think all this actually matters. It's like this gigantic puzzle when you think about life. Just a massive, complex puzzle that spans for millennia and millennia. And we do not have sometimes the capability just in our mind to put this together, because first of all, we don't have all the information. There's a lot of lost knowledge. Heck, just going back a generation or two, the things that our forefathers and foremothers have done, we can't even remember it. We probably don't even know what they did. Our great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers and so forth going back. We don't even have a clue the sacrifices that they possibly made, and they probably did make, for the betterment of the family. And they did on some level, because look at history. Look at our generational growth. Not just in technology, but just how things have gotten better for the majority of people, in terms at least how it is easier to live your life. I mean, and it's not always easy, but once again, there are people who choose to make it more difficult. I mean, if you do not like physical labor, then don't go and try to work at a physical, laborious type of job. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But you may say, well, that's the only job I have. And then this gets into making those bigger, harder, decisions. Well, if that's all that's available, you can create your own opportunity, as difficult as that it really is. But you can do that, as we talked about in previous videos, or you can maybe relocate. There's always going to be an option, typically, in some way to better yourself. But not a lot of people seek betterment, because seeking the betterment acknowledges that you have the problem. And it's just like a lot of people who have addiction problems. You can be addicted to your lifestyle because of the certainty that it gives you. And of course, certainty is a basic human need. And so even if it's not giving us maximum pleasure and happiness, sometimes we would select that certainty over the unknown, because it's scary, and we don't like to be put in places that may go south, even though there's probably more potential sometimes to go north. And so a lot of times there is a risk to reward that we have to look at. And that's up to you about how much you put yourself in risk. But remember, nothing comes without having some risk. Okay? Even if when you have kids, you're not guaranteed the kid is going to be the kid that you want. And I mean that in every sense. It could be that you want a son, for example, and then you get a daughter, and you're like, oh, okay, I can live with that, but I still wanted a son, or maybe the child has developmental, problems, and you're like, crap, that sucks, because it's going to be harder for the family, and the child is going to just have to suffer and struggle so much harder than other people. Or maybe there's economic hardships, and you don't want the child to have to deal with it because it was maybe an accidental pregnancy or whatever. The variables are almost infinite. But and I know that sometimes things are just not ideal. Of course they're not. You could almost argue that the majority of things in life are not fair or ideal. Like just recently I was up the store and I got gypped off, getting groceries. And I was, me, I jibber jabber a lot at the at the checkout, to everybody. And so I just wasn't paying attention like normal to what they were ringing me up, and they rang me up really bad. And I even went in there because I caught that when I got to the car. I was like, man, that was a very expensive. that was so expensive for groceries this time around. And I looked at it, and then I went in. I went in the store and talked to the manager because he was already there. He was doing the checkout. And once again, I wasn't paying attention again about how much I should have gotten back. And he gave me 2/3 of what I got back, what I should have gotten back. And so it's not the biggest of deals, but it just kind of makes me feel like, gosh, dang it. It seems like at that particular grocery store or that store in general, that it's almost like every time I go in there, I have to go back in because they overcharge me. And that gets real frustrating, And so it makes me not want to go to that store anymore. But there are some really nice people in that store. So I'm just like, gosh, dang it. I got to just be focused on the prices. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy my day here. It's super nice. And I hope you have a great day too where you live. Hopefully, it's warmer as well. There's this warm front over the last few days. We've been getting horrendous winds. And I cannot tell you how horrible they are. Even when we had tornadoes in the areas, I don't remember winds being that strong, And I think all this warm front came in so fast and just caused a lot of disturbance in the area. So, but that's going to be short-lived because obviously tomorrow is supposed to get crazy cold for a few days at least, and we'll see how we turn up. So the sun's just even starting to peek out here. You guys take care. I hope everyone's well. And thanks for all the support on the channel. It is really fun. The views on the channel have really skyrocketed. I'm not really sure why. I have noticed that some people have been linking and sharing these videos on their websites, which is super cool. I was just doing a very rudimentary search and I found all kinds of my videos on people's websites. I'm like, sweet. So thank you for that. You know who you are. Also, thanks for hitting the like button. I notice a lot more people are doing that on the videos. That's awesome. Thank you. And thanks for all the new subscribers that join. Don't be a stranger. Don't be afraid to comment or say something if you have a thought or a comment or idea, especially for videos. Because sometimes you guys bring up some of the coolest topics, man. And so I try to at least check my email account, theartofprepping@hotmail.com, about once a day. I do try to do that, and so I try to communicate through that as well. So don't forget about that. And also my ebook, The Art of Prepping, a Preparedness Review, is available on Amazon. Check that out. The promotional price has ended. It ended on the 8th of January, but the price is still right. I can tell you that. And so it's definitely very affordable and gives you a nice outline to kind of start for the newbie preppers and maybe as a refresher for the intermediate level preppers. So you guys take care, and I'll catch you later.